any time during the presentation. We have a Q&A function set up through the chat. Send a question whenever the moment strikes you, and we will have 30 minutes at the end of the conversation to answer those questions. All right, so why don't we get started? Hi there, my name is Greg Norfleet. I'm the Deputy Director for Operations with the Department of Family and Medical Leave. We've also got a few other folks from the department on the line today that are going to be helping out with the Q&A section of the presentation. Johan Batista, who is a PC2 associated with all things communication, all things stakeholder outreach. Dan Dakotas, who is our Manager of Appeals. Justo Delaconio, who is our administration wizard, who makes all of the trains run on time within the department, and Mary Tibma, who is our Manager of Customer Engagement and Experience. So the entire team, on behalf of the entire team, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. We're really excited about where we are as a program, and that this benefit is soon going to be available to all the citizens of the Commonwealth. So just today's presentation, we're going to be going through how to file a claim for bonding leave. They can be through the department. We're going to give an example of our online portal, so you can see the actual screens of what that flow looks like, as well as going through the employer's role in the process. So we have been at work at this for about 1.5 years, trying to get this program set up. It's been a wonderful team effort to build a department from the ground up, which is just an extraordinarily cool experience. And we're really excited to see the program come to life. So just to get us started, we've been building for quite a while, but as we were trying to release this benefits program out to the Commonwealth, we've really been trying to release functionality incrementally. So you can see on the far right here, this is the roadmap of how we've been releasing functionality as a department over the last few months. In October, we began a campaign to try to reach out to leave administrators across the Commonwealth to try to identify a point of contact for each business participating in the program. This is really important because this is the person who is going to be responding to requests for leave from employees in your organization. One of our mantras within the department is that we're here to support, not replace, leave administration within businesses. And this is our counterpart within your organization. This is somebody who's going to be directly interfacing with us. So we first did that through an email blast and what's called a form stack form, where we allowed you to enter in your points of contact, and then we would upload those into our claims management system. On December 1st, we went live with the first bit of real functionality. We opened up the employer portal. It's still live on paidleave.mass.gov. Employers can come in and they can create an account and read up on their role in the process, as well as some more detailed information about things like employer reimbursements. Then on the 18th, last week, or actually 2 weeks ago now almost, we opened up our first beta testing. So we opened up to the Commonwealth. We sent a link around through our Commonwealth HR for folks to be able to log into our benefits portal, file a claim for benefits for bonding leave for children that were born in 2020. They were either born or welcomed into a family through foster care or adoption. Then on December 22nd, last Tuesday, we went into a wider group. So we sent out emails to employers across the Commonwealth, inviting them to invite their employees to apply for benefits within our portal at paidleave.mass.gov. Again, the scope has been limited to children that have been welcomed to families in 2020, either through birth, adoption, or foster care. This Friday is a major milestone for the department because we're going to be going live for all of our benefit types for medical leave, military leave, and bonding leave, all on January 1st. In July, we'll also add caring leave, which is when you are taking time off to care for a loved one. So our strategy on how we've been doing this has really been informed by, number one, really wanting to make sure that employers are able to play a partner role in leave administration within the PFML law. So you can see early on, a lot of our functionality was focused specifically on employers, and that's because they play a really key role in our process, and they also are the best source of information regarding the actual need for leave within their organization. We also did this from a technology side point of view, that it reduces risk to add functionality a little bit at a time, rather than just having one big bang deliverable that would go live on January 1st. We've been able to pressure test our system, so we're confident that it's going to be able to stand up to the demand that we'll see early next year. Speaking of demand, the last reason that we've gone through the soft launch in the way that we have is that we have our projections for leave really show that there's going to be a surge in demand for bonding leave straight out the gate. And that's particularly true for bonding leaves for children born in 2020. So that really informed the scope of our soft launch. Over the last week and a half, or during the last 9 days of December, we're asking for folks that have welcomed a child into their family in 2020 to come in and file for leave because you will be eligible. Employers that are covered under the state plan and their employees who have welcomed a child into their families already are welcome to apply. One note that this does not apply to planned placements or future births. Those use cases will go live on Friday. So if you haven't had your child yet, please hold off until Friday to apply, but we will be ready for you. As a note there, we're going to be one of the first states that actually allows you to apply for bonding leave before the child is actually born. And for birth parents, it's important to know that you may be eligible for both medical and bonding leave. But if you're going to use both, you need to go to a healthcare provider to get certification for the need for medical leave as well as bonding leave. So it's two separate applications. And when you apply, please come in with first the medical certification, or apply for medical leave first, and then we'll be able to transition you into a bonding leave afterwards. So beyond the fact that there's a lot of pent-up demand for 2020 births, this applies to every child born in 2020. Their parents are now eligible for up to 12 weeks of leave in 2021. Washington State was the last state to really launch a program quite like this, and they got buried with demand right out of the gate. They were anticipating around 1,200 claims a week throughout the month of January. They ended up with 12,000 in the first 2 weeks. So that led to really long adjudication windows and up to 10 weeks. And we're really trying to avoid that for our citizens. The other reason why we wanted to go this route for our soft launch is that this is a really straightforward type of leave to adjudicate because the child's already born. So the certification that we require is pretty straightforward, and we'll get into that as well. So just for folks that maybe have a little familiarity with the program, but not too much, we just want to give a quick overview of what this program actually offers. There's two parts to it. There's wage benefits and there's job protections. The wage benefits are calculated by the amount that you make on an average week. So it's a really easy calculation. It's 80% of your average weekly wages up to 50% of the statewide average weekly wage, and then 50% up to $850. I know you all are doing the math in your head on what your contribution amount would, or what your benefit amount would be, but we've done some of that work for you as well. And there is a calculator available on mass.gov/DFML. where you can enter in what you've earned over the last year, and then we can tell you what your benefit amount would be based off of that. The other side of this is job protections. So much like FMLA, Chapter 175M has job protections associated with it. One thing that's of interest here is that unlike FMLA, there is no minimum size for an employer to be subject to this law. So employers with at least one employee in the state of Massachusetts are subject to PFML, and their employees are entitled to their benefits. So if you're ready to apply, let's get you ready. Let's get you set up for success. The first step is always to go talk to your employer first. As we'll talk about, we really are unique in a lot of other state programs for PFML, in that we really prioritized the experience of the employer as part of the process. And we've done that because the employer needs to manage their workforce, but they also are more up to date on the particular needs of their employees than the state could possibly be. So first things first, go to your employer, tell them that you want to take leave, and they'll be able to help you through this process. So when you come to our portal, 4 simple things. You need your employer's FEIN, which you can get off of your W-2, or better yet, talk to your HR rep and they'll be able to provide this number for you. The dates that you're requesting leave. That also includes whether it's continuous or intermittent schedules, as well as what type of leave you're planning on using. A copy of proof of birth or placement. On the far right here, you can see that we accept documentation, including a child's birth certificate, a statement from the healthcare provider of the child or a healthcare provider of the mother. Also letters from the hospital, the proof of birth letters are acceptable documentation for bonding leave. And a copy of your identity document. This should be a color photograph, front and back. You can upload this documentation directly into our portal. Our portal works best using modern browsers like Chrome or Firefox, but you can also mail us these documentations to our facility in Lawrence, and we'll be able to append it to your case there as well. You can also, just as a cool thing, be able to take photos of your documentation and upload it directly in through Safari or any sort of mobile browser. So you can take your pictures straight or do the entire application on your phone. For children that, so the acceptable documentation is listed here again, child's birth certificate, a statement from the healthcare provider of the child, or a statement from the mother's healthcare provider. For a child that's been adopted or fostered, you need documentation from the child's healthcare provider or the adoption or foster agency confirming the date of adoption or placement. So that's all well and good, but let's actually show you what this looks like. So if you start off your browser and you navigate to paidleave.mass.gov, you'll find this place to create an account. A quick note, this is a fake person. This is somebody who exists in our testing environment only. The social security number is fake, the FEIN is fake. We only put this together so that we can show you what a claim actually looks like going through. So they navigated to paidleave.mass.gov and they clicked on create an account. From here, all you have to do is enter your email address and password, and then that's going to generate an email to the account that you just provided us. Within that email account, make sure to check your spam and your promotions tabs so that you can find this 6-digit code that we're sending you. This is how we verify that your email account is actually a real email. So you can see we're going to the Gmail account. We're opening the email, getting the 6-digit code, navigating back, and entering it in. And then at this point, your email account has been verified. So you can use the credentials that you just gave us to apply for leave. So when you log back in, the first thing you're going to see is that you're going to have how we use your data. These are accordion boxes, which means that if you click down on each one of them, there's a lot more information about who we're sharing your data with and why in order to make the program work. But after you agree to those terms, you're brought to this page where you can actually start a new application for leave. So in this case, we're going to show you a continuous bonding leave claim. So this is just part one of the application, asking for your name, your phone number, your address. In the address, you'll see that our tester actually entered it in wrong. So do pay attention to the boxes that are listed here. So it's not Boston MA 02150 in that one, city, state, zip. Then whether this is also your mailing address, what is your date of birth, if you have a Massachusetts ID card, and then we'll ask you for the number. If you don't have a Massachusetts ID card, that's okay too. We have a full list of documentation that's acceptable on mass.gov/DFML. We will also ask you for ID numbers on those as well, and then your social security number. At this point, I'll again remind you, this is a fake person. This isn't a real social security number. Next, we'll go to the employer information. We're going to first ask for the employer's EIN. Again, you can get this off of your W-2, or you can ask your HR rep. Next, we're going to ask whether or not you've told your employer that you are taking leave. This is an important question, and something to note for claimants is that we will share this question and your answer to this question with your employer. So again, this is just one of the many reasons why it's best to come in with your employer so that you guys are on the same page on how you're going to answer each one of these questions. We don't require proof of when you did it, just we're going to ask your employer if you alerted them on that date. This next part is looking at your work schedule. We have this set up in two questions. First, or two different types of leave schedules. The first is a fixed schedule. This would be common, like I work 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day. So this would be a fixed, repeatable schedule. In some cases, though, we know that schedules are not predictable. So if you're a shift worker or if your hours are truly unpredictable, you can choose the second bullet that my schedule is not consistent from week to week. And at that point, we're going to ask you, how many hours do you work in an average week? That calculation does take a little bit of work, but the resources are available on mass.gov/DFML in order to get you there. But it's also really important that you talk to your employer about what your normal working week is before you come in. So on just the fixed schedule, make sure that you do enter zeros on days that you don't work. But in this case, it's Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day. Okay, and now we're going to move on to leave details. In this case, the individual is asking for a continuous bonding leave. So for the birth of a child, being able to bond with a newborn. We know that the child's been born. This child was born on December 1st, 2020. And then we're asking, what type of leave do you want? This is continuous leave. For a continuous leave, it means it's being taken in one solid chunk of time. We'll also ask about reduced leave schedules or intermittent leave schedules. If you need to combine more than one type of leave, we'll require you to enter more than one application, at least for now. But for each one of these, you can answer yes or no. You can enter in the leave details of the schedule that you want. As a quick note, bonding leave has a unique provision in our law that the intermittent leave schedule is subject to approval of the employer. It's the only schedule, it's the only leave type that has that direct line of authority to the employer. So if your employer, before you come to the department, make sure that you've agreed on the leave schedule that you're going to ask for, because the employer can deny it outright if you haven't communicated that schedule to them. At this point, you're going to go to review and confirm. You're given a snapshot of all the information that you provided us thus far, and then you can hit submit part 1. At this point, a notice is generated to your employer that an application has been started. That will include your name, a truncated version of your birth date that only has the month and the day, and your claim ID number, and that no action at this point is required. So after that, you'll go straight down. Part 1 of your application has been confirmed. You go to part 2. We support both direct deposit and physical checks. We do prefer if you use direct deposit, it just makes our process a lot smoother. But if you need to have paper checks, we can also accommodate that. But here, we just ask for your routing number, account number, and then you can submit it. Part 2 is just that easy. Then part 3, we're really proud of this. Uploading the documents, as we mentioned, you can do this through your smartphone. But when you're uploading this documentation, it works best in a modern browser. But you find the file, and then it shows you a preview of the document that you just uploaded, so you can be sure that that's the one that you required. A reminder, for identity documents, you need front and back color photographs of your identity document, and then your supporting certification documentation. Same deal, that you can just take the picture on your phone or you can scan it in, but we'll show you a preview of what you've uploaded. You can add more than one file if you need to, push save and continue, and then you've answered all the questions that we require to grant leave. You get one more page where you get to look at all the details that you provided to the department. Make sure that you are confident with everything that you provided us, and then hit submit. At this point, another notice will be generated to your employer, and it's going to request their input into the leave. But here you can see that you've got your, you've submitted your family leave application. There's your ID number. You can return to your applications, and then when you're actually in the portal again, you'll find these cards for every claim that you've submitted, and you'll be able to organize these based off of the claim number. So this for family leave is anytime that you have a question regarding that request for leave, this card will be updated. This will have your legal notices when a decision is made, if it's an approval, denial, or request for more information. And if you want to provide more information to the department, just click on the blue bar that says upload additional documents, and you're able to upload documents through the same screens that you saw earlier. So it's that easy from the employee point of view. From the employer point of view, though, we really wanted to make sure that the employer is engaged throughout this process. So first and foremost, we said it a few times, but please start with your employer before coming to the department. The department's not able to accept any claims unless the employee certifies that they have alerted their employer to the need for leave. Second, we're going to notify the employer through the system when an application is started, so when part 1 of the application is submitted, when an application is submitted, so after part 3, what we just saw, and then when the decision is made, whether it's approved or denied. During the second stage there, so after the application is submitted, we are going to send a request for information to the employer, where we're going to ask for the employer to validate leave information and details, propose amendments where necessary, and also provide any additional information that's important for the department to be able to make an adjudicatory decision. Employers can raise issues that may lead to a denial, particularly if there's aspects of the claim that are missing, incorrect, or fraudulent. You could be denied if you've already used your leave allotment for the benefit year, but that provision isn't necessarily relevant for day 1 operations. As we mentioned, under 175M, there are the job protections under 175M start off on January 1st. So even in a case where your employee has gone out for 12 weeks under FMLA in 2020, they may be eligible for up to 12 weeks of family leave under PFML starting January 1st. So let's walk you through a couple of demos on what the employer role looks like. First, let's get you an account. So the Leave Administrator account is our interface with the employer, and it's pretty easy to get set up. When you navigate to this page, you actually would go through mass.gov/DFML and you would click on create an employer account. There's some really helpful information about what an employer account is and why it's useful there, but as well as a link to this page. So just like with the claimant account, we're asked for an email address, a password, and an EIN number. There's some additional verification that happens on the back end, but we're not going to go into that today. So as you provided these 3 data elements, you hit create an account. This is going to send an email to your, this is going to send an email to your account. Navigate to your Gmail or whatever other email client you're using. Make sure to check your promotions and junk filters. And then you'll find our 6-digit code. Hit submit. And just like that, you now have an employer account. And you can log in. Right now, the only information that you'll find in there, there's some information about the claims process. There's also information about the reimbursements process. So the main reason why you need a leave administrator account is that we, as the department, want to reach out to you when an individual in your organization requests leave. So this is the application that we saw completed earlier from Jared Fay. And his employer at Wayne Enterprises has received this email that says that you have 10 business days to respond, but something needs your attention. So you'll get this email and you can push view details. It'll bring you to your login page. Just enter the information that you entered in the employer portal. This is one of our developers, Jose's account. And then we'll pull into this page where the first question that we ask is, are you the right person to respond to this application? We do this for some of our bigger businesses that have multiple leave administrators. As a note, there is no upper limit to the number of leave administrators that you can have associated with a single paid leave account. But if you have businesses throughout the state, they might have different HR reps, and we just want to make sure that you are the correct person to answer this leave response. So after you push yes, you can start the review process. Now this page should look familiar because it's the same application that the individual submitted earlier. The couple of key things to look at. First, the documentation, this rabbit.jpg. This is the certification document that should show the date of birth of the child. And then here, this little button, amend. In the Commonwealth, we work 37.5 hours a week, billable time. So some folks may think that they work 40 hours, but in reality, it's 37.5. And as the employer, you can come in and you can amend the time here. A little box will pop up, and then you can just enter in the time that they actually work. For the employer benefits, one thing to note is that right now, requesting offsets for wage replacements from PTO, sick time, vacation time, or any other wages that you're receiving from your employer is not supported through our main flow. So the individual needs to call the contact center in order to report wage replacements. But the employer can also report them here. And then there's 4 big questions that we ask. Number 1, do you have any reason to suspect that this is fraud? If you do, if you know Jared and you went and you talked to him and said, hey, I got an application for leave. I didn't realize that you had just had a child. And he says, I didn't. Tell us that it's fraud so that we can hunt it down and we can do our due diligence on the program integrity side. Next, we asked, did you get at least 30 days notice? If not, when were you notified? Then do you approve or deny this leave request based off of your own internal policies and procedures? Again, it's important to know that even if you deny the claim, there is a chance that the department may approve it. As long as we're basically looking at it from a purely statutory basis. If there's other information for why you denied the leave, it's important to tell us why. So if you click deny, then you'll end up with a none or drop down box where we'll ask you for more information about your decision. This also happens if you have additional comments or concerns. If you click less, yes, tell us more. This could be offsets. This could be any other information that you think would be important for the department to consider when making an adjudicatory decision. In this case, we took the happy path and we push submit. And you get to this thank you page. This has the application ID in case you need to call the contact center again about this claim. It also has a survey. The survey was designed to be extraordinarily fast, less than 30 seconds if at all possible. But we are a brand new service within the Commonwealth, and we are really dedicated to continuously improving the service offerings that we provide. So taking this little 30-second survey will actually really help us help inform where we need to improve the product over time. So with that, to transition over, if you have other questions about benefits or eligibility, you can reach out to our contact center in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Their phone number is 833-344-PFML. So 833-344-PFML. It's open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We have live agents able to support questions in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. We also have a language line available for other languages, as well as resources to work with the Federal Relay for deaf and hard of hearing populations. So with that, just a reminder, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, please do. There's a ton of great information that we're sending out on a regular basis. And as the program evolves, we really want you to be part of it. So do keep in touch with the department, stay close to the website, send us emails, call us, do whatever. We love feedback. We love to learn how we can do this better over time. But with that, I think we can shift over to a Q&A session. So we've been taking in questions via the chat throughout this presentation. Just as a note, we will be following up with folks after the call with an email of this presentation, a 3-page document that's an FAQ on bonding leave, sample emails, and also this is our 4th session. We've gotten a lot of great questions, and we're going to turn around an FAQ document so that we can answer a lot of the questions that came up during these sessions. So if we don't answer your question live today, I do apologize in advance that we won't get through all of the questions that we get today, but we will follow up in email on all the questions that we've received. So let's jump into it. Okay, the first question I think I just saw jump around the chat. That's are all births or adoptions in 2020 allowed to file for bonding? It's a great question. So the rule is that you are able to take bonding leave within the first 12 months of a child's birth or placement in your family. So it's not all 2020 births that are eligible. It's only if the child was, or up into, so your leave has to be completed a day before the child's first birthday or a day before the anniversary of their placement in your home. But otherwise, yes, 2020 births are eligible for PFML benefits in 2021. When can we expect to receive the presentation? There's a lot going on in the department right now, but we are committed to turning this around really fast. I'm hoping that we're able to get this out either tomorrow or Wednesday. So we'll try to get something over to you all as soon as we can. Okay, we got an example of an employer who pays 100% parental leave for 16 weeks. Should the employee apply with us with the department as well as receiving the 16 paid weeks? And is this something I would write in the comments? So this is a great question, and this actually has a impact around the employer's key role in the process. Obviously, as a department, and we do not want to disincentivize employers from offering more generous programs than the state's offering at this time. So there's a couple of things to know. Number one, if you have a program that pays 100% wage replacements over 16 weeks for all the same qualifying conditions as the state, you may be eligible for a private plan exemption. These can come in a couple of flavors. They can be self-insured or they can be through a provider. But if you go through Mass Tax Connect and DOR, we have an entire page set up on how you would get an exemption from the state program. What's cool about that is then you actually don't owe the contributions on a quarterly basis because you're already paying them for your other plan. If you go a different route though, you can keep your plan where you're paying 16 weeks of 100% wage replacement. And because it's for a qualifying condition, assuming that it's a self-insured plan, you may be eligible for reimbursement. What reimbursement looks like with the department, and this information is within the employer portal. So another great reason to register for an employer portal account is we have a section on employer reimbursements. But if you have a plan that's more generous than the state for even a shorter duration, the example that we always give is the Commonwealth has 2 weeks of paternity leave that's paid at 100% wage replacement. So in order to not disincentivize employers from doing that, we'll actually reimburse you for making the payments to your employees. They should apply for benefits with the department, and then you as the employer can apply for reimbursement, and we'll pay you the amount that we would have paid your employee during those weeks that you were paying for the benefit. As an employer, what happens if you respond that you are not the correct person in the organization to respond? Great question. So this is that first screen where are you the right person? So a couple of things. Number one, hopefully we've made a really strong effort to try to get as many leave administrators into our system as possible. But in some cases, we have defaulted to your Mass Tax Connect account holder. And if they're not the right person, you can call us and we can set up an employer account for you with no problem. You can also do it online through the flow that we just showed you. But in a situation where you haven't been able to do that and somebody like your tax administrator gets an email from the department saying that somebody has requested leave within your organization, and then they get to the employer request and they say no, truth is nothing happens. From the department, from a systems point of view, nothing happens. It will give you some information about how to forward this message. You can forward it to another individual in your organization, but what you'll need to do is then have that individual sign up for an employer account and then give us a call so that we can re-trigger the notice. Okay, can the application be saved partway through and completed at another time? Yeah, so we developed this as a progressive application. So after you complete part 1 of the application, you can come back at any time. You can actually come back at any time whenever you start the application, as long as you use the same browser. But if you wanted to switch devices, like I start my application on my phone and then I want to finish it on my desktop, you can do that through the portal. You can also start the application in the portal and finish in the contact center. One complexity is that you cannot start an application in the contact center and then finish in the portal. It's a functionality that we're still developing, and it will be there at some point during this year. But currently, this is another reason why we encourage folks to use the portal if at all possible, because then you can do, not only can you start and stop an application, you can also switch channels on how you would complete it. If an employee already received parental leave paid, can or should they still apply? I can only speak to can they apply, and the answer to that is yes. They would be able to apply because there are no job protections associated with 175M that are currently in effect. So the way the statute is written is that your benefit year looks forward, and that this law takes effect on January 1st, 2021. So you couldn't, they could not, nobody could have exhausted their paid leave allowance during 2020, and everybody starts fresh with 12 weeks in January. Okay. Okay. So this one's a bit more involved. If an employer has a private personal illness leave and goes through the state for family leave, will you be asking how much time has been allowed for a mother to recover from childbirth? Does that factor into how much time you will approve for bonding leave, or will everyone get 12 weeks? This is a really good question. And actually, this is another part of what makes Massachusetts PFML really special, is that we're going to be one of the first states that allows you to apply for bonding leave before the child is born. For birth parents that are, for parents that are going to be giving birth, we also are going to allow, or we're creating systems in order to make it easier to transition between a medical leave and a bonding leave. So I know that this is kind of in the weeds terminology that we're using, but there's two major flavors of PFML benefits. There's bonding leave and medical leave. Medical leave is for your serious health condition. Bonding leave is to care for yourself or to care for others. In pregnancy related leave, so in the medical leave side of things, pregnancy is actually a unique case. So an individual can come in and apply for pregnancy-related medical leave with a certification from a doctor, and then they can transition into bonding leave without an additional waiting week. The way to make that work is that you would first come in on January 1st or after and apply for medical leave and denote it as pregnancy-related medical leave. We'll have resources available on our website, and this will also be part of the educational document that we're going to be sending out to participants from this call. But if you start an application as a pregnancy-related medical leave claim, then we can process that based off of the time that your healthcare provider says you need in order to recover from pregnancy. And then once the child is born, or once you no longer need the medical leave, we can transition directly into a bonding leave. Those two allowances are different. For medical leave, you get up to 20 weeks. For family leave, you get up to 12 weeks. Combined, you can get up to 26 weeks of benefit payments. Will there be any more webinars like this in the coming weeks? We're going to track demand. As we launch this program, there's a lot that we know. There's a lot more that we don't. But based off of what our constituents need, we're dedicated to making it work. So if this is something that you all find useful, we'll absolutely commit to making more of these available. We're also going to be creating other resources that'll help folks apply. And we will make sure that we are constantly in communication as best we can. So I'm seeing a lot of repeat questions. Here's a good one. How long does an employee have to work in Massachusetts in order to be eligible for PFML? So PFML is actually determined on your financial eligibility. and your financial eligibility will follow you across employers. Our financial eligibility test, just like our benefit calculation, is somewhat complex. It's the same test that you would see for unemployment insurance, in that there's a base floor value that you've had to have earned during the last calendar year, or during the last 4 quarters, rather, sorry. And then there's a multiplier. So right now, the floor amount is $5,100 over the last 12 months. And then you have to earn 30 times the benefit amount that you would have received from the department. Because again, that's a super hard mental math task to do. We do encourage you guys to check out the benefits calculator that we set up on mass.gov/DFML. That has the financial eligibility test built in. In sum, the financial eligibility test is both a test of how much did you earn and over what time. So there isn't like a hard and fast rule, but you can play around with it and find out whether or not you'll be financially eligible and for how much. How soon will someone receive benefit payments once a claim is approved? So we did just put a timeline for payments on our website, but something to keep in mind is that the timeline associated with making benefits has a number of administrative tasks behind it. So the ways to make sure that your payment shows up quick are, number one, if you can, apply before you go out for leave. There's some work that we need to do in order to get you set up as a vendor in our statewide payment system. And then we also need to set up we have to do a pre-note process and any direct deposits. And if you ask for a check, it's subject to US mail timelines. But if you apply ahead of time, we can take a leave request in 60 days before you actually leave. Then that'll allow us to also set up the payment mechanisms in time so that you'll be able to get a check after your second week. In some other cases, though, if the other way to really speed up your payment and actually our adjudication process is to come in with your employer. That step that we went through with the employer request for information, the employer has 10 business days to respond to the department's request, but that's a maximum value. In our testing so far, we found employers are pretty receptive to being able to fill out that request. And when they do, we're able to turn around the applications at a much faster rate. So for our first one, we opened on a Friday and we had approved our first claim by 9 a.m. on Monday. So it can be a really quick process, but the pieces all have to be there. And then if the pieces are all there, that also speeds up our ability to pay you. Here's a good one. Can the employee change the end date of their bonding leave request after it's been submitted and approved? They can. This is there's a lot of nuance underneath this question because there's different times that modifications happen, and there's different pathways for each. So if the claim hasn't been adjudicated, it has one process, but if the claim's already been approved and the person's already out for leave and they need an extension, the thing to know is that if it's a medical leave claim, then we'll need an additional certification document. In either case, we will alert the employer of the change in dates so that they're on the same page. Is the $850 adjusted for part-time status? For example, is the maximum for a half-time FTE $425 a week? No, not quite. The state of Massachusetts does not collect information on the number of hours that are worked. We collect information on the amount that you were paid during each calendar quarter. So your financial benefit is based off of the wages that were reported to DOR over the last year. So whether you're full-time, part-time, or independent, somebody who opted in, we don't ask for the number of hours, so we don't prorate based off of that. The only time that there's proration associated with a benefit amount would be during reduced and intermittent leave scenarios. In those cases, we still calculate the weekly benefit based off of the total amount that you've earned, but then we calculate your replacement benefit at an hourly basis by dividing your weekly benefit by the number of hours that you work. I know that seems, again, kind of mathy, but basically, if you took 50% of, if you went in a reduced leave schedule from being full-time to part-time, so you lost half of your hours, we would prorate your benefit to 50% of the benefit amount that you would have otherwise been eligible for. Will the employer be responsible for any kind of notification to the employee for claims that are approved or denied? No. The department will notify the individual as well as to the status of their claim. We'll notify them in any case where there's an approval, a denial, or a request for more information. It's our big hope that the employer and the employee are both on the same page, so it doesn't come as a surprise to either party. What happens if the employee does not provide the employer with at least 30 days of notice? In this case, it's important to know that the statute says that you're supposed to give your employer 30 days notice prior to taking a leave. However, there are extenuating circumstances that can prevent that from happening. What needs to happen in those cases is that you need to explain why you were unable to give that notice ahead of time or within that 30-day, before that 30-day window. But we would ask that, again, you inform your employer before you come to the department. That's really the most important thing from the department's point of view, is that if you're going to notify, if you're able to notify the department, you should also be able to notify your employer. So please make sure to go to your employer first. But in some cases, if there's no reason why you were unable to give them 30 days, it could delay the approval of your benefits. Yeah. Okay. Will the documents verifying their ID need to be in color? Yes. So when you submit your documentation, for the IDs in particular, it needs to be front and back copies in color. Can you confirm if intermittent leave is an option for bonding? In what blocks of time can that leave type be taken? So this is an interesting part of the law. The intermittent leaves schedules. So leave can be taken in 3 different flavors. Continuous, which is just one big block of time. A reduced schedule, which is that you're going from full-time to part-time. Or intermittent, where you need to take blocks of time off over an extended period of time. Something to know, for bonding leaves, the schedule for a reduced or an intermittent leave is subject to approval from the employer. However, if the employer and the employee agree on the schedule, we're set up to be able to accommodate those types of leave schedules. We are relatively agnostic into what those schedules actually look like, but the minimum amount of time that can be reported are in 15-minute increments of time. And in order to file an intermittent leave claim, you need to have either A, taken at least 8 hours off, or B, 30 days need to have passed. But if you meet those if you meet that criteria and it's in 15-minute increments, the department's able to support it. Are all the forms needed for the physician located on the website? They are. So we do have our documents for the certification of a serious health condition available on mass.gov/DFML. These forms are an extension of the FMLA paperwork. It has a lot of the same information, but it does match very closely to our law. Is the site ready to receive applications? And if so, is there a direct link that can be sent to employees? Great news is yes, it is ready to accept applications. We are only at this stage taking in bonding leave claims for 2020, but on January 1st, we'll be able to take in all the other leave types besides caring leave. The link has actually already been shared with employers as through the same channels that we actually sent out the invite to this webinar. So we can look back into it and potentially share that link again. But by the time that we get this out, we may actually have the link directly available. When it is available, you can go to paidleave.mass.gov and start applications today. And I think with that, we are actually just about at time. I think I can find one more question and then. Yeah, I've got one more question here, and then we'll say goodbye and wrap up. So the last one I've got here is, how do you know who the employer is? Do you ask that on the application? So as part of the application, we do ask for the EIN of the employer. Something to note, if you have multiple employers, you'll need to file multiple applications at this time. So you will be able to look for the EIN, and then your benefit will send the notices to that particular employer based off of that. And that information comes out of the DOR tables. Okay, so with that, we just want to, again, thank everybody for their time this afternoon. We are so excited as a department to reach this milestone and so excited to be in a position to be able to serve the people of the Commonwealth for this benefit program. The teams really put in a really huge effort to get this up and running, but we also acknowledge that this is a living, breathing product that we're going to be improving and iterating on over time. And we would love, love, love your feedback and suggestions for improvement. This is something that we're going to be building on for the foreseeable future. But thank you all so much for joining, and hope you all had happy holidays, and we're looking forward to serving you in the new year.